Thank you very much. And hello, everyone, and congratulations on being the most resilient of all of the attendees at the Drone Summit 2025. You really are the MVPs. But along with me, we also have some MVPs. And today we've been talking a lot about drones, evidently. But today we'll, in this panel, be placing a focus on counter-drone technologies, which is an inevitable component of what has been, by some people today, named the drone war. So here on the stage, I'm joined by Kaspars Pollaks, Director of LMT Defense, Yaroslav Filimonov, CEO and co-owner of KVERTUS, Lennart Bult, co-founder of Emergent Swarm Solutions, Veiko-Vello Palm, management board member at Frankenburg Technologies, and Christian Jäger, head of Reconnaissance and Protection at Hensoldt. So before we get in, I think it would be helpful for all of us to have a little bit of insight into the background of our speakers to understand where they're coming with. So maybe in 2 sentences, you can let us know what your area of expertise is. Kaspar, we can start with you.
Yes, good afternoon. That is unhuman to have it so late in the afternoon, but yes, as Julia said, I'm director of LMT Defense. That's the defense technology department at Latvia's largest telco operator. So we are actually like Vodafone or Orange or Kyivstar, but maybe a bit different in our dual-use nature. And besides that, I'm a member of the board at Latvian Military Technology and Robotics Association.
Thank you. Yaroslav.
Yeah, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Yaroslav, and I am CEO and co-owner KVERTUS company. Our expertise is in electronic warfare and detection drone field. So I want to say that, to my mind, I think that this panel discussion should be first today, not the last one, but we have a strong knowledge and experience in how to protect facilities, soldiers, trucks, and etc. against drones. And this is a very important topic that no one thinking about. So let's talk about this today.
Thank you. Lennart.
Yep. I'm Lennart. Good afternoon. Co-founder and managing director at Emergent Swarm Solutions, where we work on software for autonomous swarming drones.
Short and sweet. Thank you. Veiko-Vello.
Thank you. Hello. Happy to be here. Retired Estonian military officer. Now more than a year I work in a company called Frankenburg Technologies. In the startup world, we are quite old and respectable, more than 60 weeks old already. And we are working in the counter-UAS solution and developing and soon producing world first affordable and precise air defense missiles, specifically against the drones.
Thank you. And Christian.
Thank you. I'm heading a business area within Hensoldt, dealing with counter-UAV. I started this actually 10 years ago already in a company called ESG, which has been recently procured by Hensoldt. This company I started counter-drone in. It was a product-neutral system integrator. So what we were doing and what we are still doing within Hensoldt is putting together a multi-sensor, multi-effector counter-drone system, specifically tailored to the actual needs, which makes every system different to the other one, because the requirements and the needs from the various customer groups are so different that we recognized over the last 10 years that the complexity actually of this small word counter-UAV is vastly underestimated. That's what I was doing the last 10 years, actually.
Perfect, thank you. Now, one of the challenges with counter-drone technologies is, from what I understand, that as soon as you launch a counter-drone approach, then the enemy is able to see it, adapt to it, and then counter your counter, which causes an infinite loop, a cycle of a cat-and-mouse situation. So maybe, Yaroslav, you can tell us more about how big of a problem this is, and is it an inevitability? Can we combat this?
Yeah, so I want to start from the confirmation this is a really big problem. And tell you more, it's a problem not only about Ukraine, because of war in Ukraine. Just I want to emphasize that even today and different other exhibitions and conferences, everyone talking about drones. Drones, big, small, wings, rotors, multi-rotors, and etc. But everyone forget that electronic warfare and counter-UAV systems is much more harder than creating drones, because the harder thing in drones is only the signal between the drone and the operator. And electronic warfare, it's a much complicated thing, and it's harder to cut the signal between the drone and operator than everyone thinks. So the first. The second, I just want to emphasize that this problem is not only about Ukraine. It will be scaling all over the world. Why? Because, for example, Russia have more than 80,000 pilots trained to kill people on the front line. How do you think? What will happen when the war will be frozen, or Ukraine will win and the war will end? What these 80,000 pilots will do? Some of them became alcoholics and will die. Some of them left in the Russian army. And most of all will go where? All over the world to train different private military groups and private troops. And then everyone will see where is the problem with drones, because they will start appear in like in different fields and in different countries, and will do the tasks to kill people all over the world. So I just want to tell that this is a really, really big problem, and everyone should think not only about drones, but in a one ecosystem, how to build drones and how to build a protection against drones. And it should be like a national program in every country. And everyone should do it immediately, because the problem will not wait for your decision, for your solution. The problem will scale from year to year.
Thank you for that reminder. I think that those who are in this room are also very aware that this is an international problem. But Veiko, maybe I can ask you about this cat and mouse situation with counter-drone technologies and countering the counter. How is it inevitable to become redundant?
I think we are not so much in this cat and mouse situation yet. So, and what I mean by that, first, let me go back to what was said just a second ago. So it is a problem that Russia has found an asymmetry on the battlefield. They have found that the drones is something they can use effectively and in mass. So, you know, what is our reaction? What is our solution? What is certain is that if we build drones ourselves, that does not take away the threat of incoming drones. I mean, if they send waves and waves of imprecise but deadly drones, so how would that help that we send some drones back? I mean, you still have to suffer in silence all these incoming waves, right? The point number one. And the point number two is kind of that technologically, it is not difficult to detect, track, and identify a single drone. So we are so technologically advanced that we can manage that. And technologically, it's not very difficult to take down any single drone. The problem is that it's not one drone, and it's not in one place, but they're everywhere, and there are just way too many. So the issue what we have currently in counter-UAS, and we are not, as a Western world, we're not in a situation where we can intelligently discuss about what about counter-UAS. We don't have counter-UAS. We don't have the first defense to start with. We cannot mass produce, and we cannot mass produce affordable counter solution. So before we go into this cat and mouse situation, I think we need to have the first layer of hygiene, the first layer of defense built up.
Excellent. And Christian, would you agree with that?
I absolutely would agree that it's not a technological cat and mouse play right now. It's more on the procedure side, how to introduce drones in the battlefield and how accustomed you are with this new tool. I mean, everyone needs to learn how to use new technology, how to use new equipment, and there we see quite a rapid advancement on both sides, how to use this new asset. This does not mean that we see very rapidly in a few weeks new technologies emerge to control drones or to build them or to destroy them, but we see a rapid gaining of knowledge in how to use them or how to counter them.
Thank you. And I think that LMT is doing a lot of work in developing that baseline hygiene dual-use applications. Kaspar, can you comment on your perspective?
Yeah, I just wanted to continue a bit first on this cat and mouse part. I agree with what Veiko said completely. And in case when the situation is clear that we are at war and enemy drones are coming, there are means and ways how to detect them, and it's sort of quite clear what you have to do with them. You have to destroy or suppress or spoof or jam, whatever, the opposing force drones. But if we talk about the situation of Europe at the moment, and especially Baltics, then referring to the cat and mouse situation is actually the big question is to how to understand and what are the techniques and procedures, how to understand when we actually have to start doing something, because the moment when the war has started, it will be quite hard to say. At the moment we are already in the hybrid warfare, and we see the activity around critical infrastructure, around the government objects of different unmanned systems. And the cat and mouse here is to actually distinguish which are good drones, which are bad drones, which are just piloted in incorrect way from the regulatory perspective. And that is where usually in countries mobile operators have something to do in times of peace, and not only is the very civilian solutions like the UTM systems, just to understand friend or foe in the times of peace. If we go further and look unconventionally to the telco operators, then we are talking about huge amount of the infrastructure as towers. For example, LMT in Latvia only we operate 1,500 plus base station towers. So that's the huge amount of infrastructure for example, sensor deployment. That is one thing. On the technology perspective, with regards to the 5G, we have spent last, I don't know, 5 years trying to understand what actually to do with the 5G. And defense is definitely one of the applications, and what 5G promises is the potential of the 5G application for the passive detection, acting as the passive sensor for the signal reflection and object detection in the sky. So that is some of the thoughts I have at the moment with regards to the cat and mouse.
Well, and then you mentioned a lot of the sensor detection and situational awareness. And when we're talking about counter-drone technologies, we're not only talking about a military environment. We're talking about protecting national infrastructure. We're talking about airports. We're talking about stadiums. Yeah, maybe Veiko, tell us, how can we approach this, and who is responsible?
Thank you for asking. I think you're spot on. The question is not so much on the battlefield. The battlefield, the positive side on the battlefield is that you have a lot of weapons. And basically every weapon can be used as a counter-drone weapon, literally small arms and also more complicated weapon systems. But further you move from the front line, is less and less weapons you have and less trained people. But this is where our civilian infrastructure, national infrastructure is, which is needed to upkeep the vital services for the society. And Russians are not stupid. They can be anything else, but they're not definitely stupid. What they do very deliberately in Ukraine is that they dismantle this critical national infrastructure, not because they are evil, but because they are smart. They know that we are open and democratic societies where people's opinion matters. So if you influence a society, if society suffers, then society will influence their own political leaders and you will change the course of the country. So that's why they are doing this. And this is where we have the biggest issue. So you have a situation where you literally have thousands and thousands of protected sites, starting from power grid, ending up with communication, but also water purification, canalization, food distribution, transportation, and you can go on and on and on. And you have less and less military there. So the question is how anybody protects that. And the most common misconception is that military will protect. This would be unrealistic because we do not want to train a soldier for months and years to put it, beside one substation to guard the substation with very, very expensive weapon system. So we have to create a legal contract and we have to create technological possibilities to get the early warning, to understand what is coming in, and at the end also to defeat the drone threat against our national infrastructure. This all needs to be built up. It's not easy. Is it needed? Absolutely. And just, sorry for taking too much time, but just to comment earlier what I said, it's the war economy that matters. It's affordability that we're currently missing. So technologically, it's not difficult to take one drone down. It's not difficult. But multiplication is a problem. And you asked about cat and mice. Currently, I think we are in a situation where we can reasonably say that we can take down, as a Western militaries, less than 10% of the drones. Less than 10% of the drones. So if we are in the situation that we can take down 70, 80, 90% of the enemy drones, then this counter steps in because they have to change tactics. If we take down 7%, they will just send more drones. I mean, it's war economy. But if we take down 90%, then the price comes too high and they have to change something. They make their drones more expensive, and this is where we start winning. Sorry for taking too much time.
And the solution is what? Scaling manufacturing?
Say again?
And the solution is what? Scaling manufacturing?
Buy Frankenburg Technologies products, of course. Paid commercial. And no, the solutions are there are multiple things we need to do. If in the UAV and drone production world, we can do the civilian drones, we can do dual-use drones, and we can do military drones, right? So you can have this legal contract and legal kind of dissemination. Then in the counter-UAS world, almost everything from the moment one is single-use. I mean, how do you use counter-UAV missile? For pizza delivery, yes, probably, but not really realistic. So
when you're unhappy with your pizza and you send it away.
A very fast pizza delivery, and you have to react very rapidly. But also EW. I mean, you can't have EW, acting and companies just, I'll do EW gun. Let's imagine that. So licensing, certification, the government will be absolutely thrilled to know that you are building a powerful EW, station in your garage. This is not going to work as easily. So we need to have some kind of contract for that too.
Mm-hmm. But returning to the topic of the civilian infrastructure, Kaspar, I know that LMT has been doing a lot in collaboration with the airspace, local airspace. What are you seeing? Are there possible approaches?
Yeah. So the first thing is, I think that for years, and I have some military experience as well, we have approached the counter UAV question as the single soldier, single object, single site solution. So You have to protect, I don't know, building, bunker, whatever, or vehicle. You have a single system for that, single operator or non-operator, and you just proceed with operations just to solve the problem of that thing. And continuing of what Veiko said, there is the urgent need, I think, to approach the counter-UAS problem more aggressively and more in a sense of the air defense, but it doesn't mean that all the counter-UAS stuff has to be done by the military. There is just not such resource to do that countrywide. And in times both of peace and war. So approach the problem from the sort of perspective of the air defense, that you have to do that in a layered approach. And in the air defense, the fundamental importance is the situation awareness. And LMT for years has been working in collaboration with the Ministry of Defense and Armed Forces on the national situational awareness solution adoption. And it is okay to do that in a parallel of procuring already existent systems, because at the end what you get is the national capability. And I would say, yeah, just summing up is the situation awareness is paramount. And it goes closely together what I said before, the UTM systems understanding which drone is what, and at the end of the day, fusing the sensor information, sharing the information between the involved forces, assets, effectors, whatever will be there at the end of the day, whether the EW solutions or Frankenburg technology missiles, you need the platform how to disseminate the information. And it should not be locked only for some specific institution or system. That's the really team game.
Thank you. And my next question will be for Lennart. And we heard from Veiko that downing one drone is not a problem, but when there are many, then it's a problem. And your company specializes in swarming technologies. How do you see your role in the counter-drone aspect?
Yeah, so I think the biggest conclusion is that everything that the other panelists are saying, we're actively working to make it even harder, even more difficult. But I think that's also where we can play a role in a very sort of confidential setting, is talk about, okay, what are we developing in Europe to make it more difficult to detect it, to counter it in EW, but also kinetic. So how are we scaling our systems to have it such that you need to counter 1,000 drones at the same time? And I think there, we're actively working on setting up NATO or EU-wide sort of iterative testing cycle, and making sure that we develop that in a confidential setting, and that we develop our European and NATO capabilities without having the Russians listen in on that and seeing what we're doing, and then deploying it in Ukraine and helping Ukraine.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And one thing that we've heard multiple times throughout today is that one of our biggest challenges across Europe is in the manufacturing aspect and ensuring a stable flow of our technologies. And I think, Yaroslav, you possibly have the most experience in scaling manufacturing capabilities. Can you tell us about what those challenges are and how to overcome them?
Yeah, of course. At first, a few additional words about the counter-drone systems, about the legislation, about the licenses, and etc., etc. I want to say that I'm sure that no one here wants the war in his country. But war will not ask you, want you or not. War just will come. And war will not ask you, do you have a license to use this frequency, or do you have a license to fly on the drone and hit the critical infrastructure facilities. War will come and will hit. So I want to emphasize that the first step is to realize the problem. Of course, everything should be polite and should be planned. But the first step is to realize the problem. Everyone should be prepared for the war of drones. Let's go to the scaling and to these questions. So we started from 2017. Before the 2022, we were producing the first Ukrainian anti-drone gun, and our end users were border control, national police, and it was only about 15 people in our company and about above 500 square meters. Then, there's like no reason to be a big company because the drones were using only like an entertainment. They were flying to film landscapes, birthday parties, and celebrities different, and etc. And when war started in 2022, we saw the big problem because the drones started to kill people. And this was about not only just a business, about scaling to make more. It was about the surviving of our Ukraine, and there were only 5 companies that were producing electronic warfare systems. And now in Ukraine, more than 200 such companies. It's another question about these 200 companies. But these 5 companies continue to scale and continue to develop technologies, as we are as KVERTUS. And scaling, it's about everything. It's about people, and this is the first problem because most of people goes to the war, part of people goes abroad to Ukraine, so we started to search and to study people. The second is resources. Unfortunately, Ukraine had no enough resources. In Ukraine, it's not only about money, it's about different technologies like the software and hardware, and etc. So the first part of the war, it was only about the ordering parts in China. And I guess China is the winner of this war in any case. Then we started to invest money in research and development to create new technologies in electronic warfare and in detection. And this was the correct step because as we became like a national producer, we get the name, we get the reputation, and it became easier for us to found people, correct people, engineers, to involve engineers in our projects, to involve teams that have some solutions in this case. But the first in scaling is desire to become bigger and to find out some new technologies and to solve the problematic. And of course, very important thing in scaling is management. Because more people, more zone of responsibility, and you should be more patient for people. And as we see now, we are above 200 people and more than 5,000 square meters, warehouses, manufacturing offices, and etc. And this scaling is about us, it's a successful story.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And Veiko, I think I saw you had a comment.
Yes, 2 quick ones on the licensing and certificates. Absolutely agree. They don't matter in Ukraine at all, and they should not matter. I mean, who cares? The problem is that Latvia, Estonia, Lithuania, Poland, Finland, Sweden, Norway, Belgium, and you can go on, are not in war. So we are not in war. And as long as we're not in war, there is a risk-averse society. We're a safe and secure society. No one expects to... If I'm a soldier and on a front line and somebody hands me a new gun and says, well, this gun will shoot longer, is more precise, will kill more enemy, but 1 out of every 10,000 rifles will explode and kill you, I'll say, hell, give me that gun quick. If you are in this country like Estonia or Latvia and somebody talks about this rifle, everybody says stop. Hold on. I mean, no one wants to be on the newspaper's headlines. Who is responsible for a soldier killed during the training accident? So that is one thing. We need licensing and certificates, and this is not an encouragement, but this is a statement of fact. We are risk-averse society. However, we also need to be prepared for the war, because it is good to innovate, But it's stupid to innovate when the bombs are falling. So let's do innovation earlier. What is happening now in Ukraine is that if that would have been, and sorry, I'm ex-military, so if that would have been a normal war, conventional war, then, you know, no problems, we continue with our processes, buy more tanks, more planes, you know, on we go. But this has changed the game. It's not the full revolution in military affairs, but in short effect, Russians have changed their game, and we are totally exposed. So we have to catch up. We are behind the curve. We have to innovate really, really fast. And for that, especially in the counter-UAS world, we need a very strong political leadership, because in order to innovate, in order to scale, in order to produce in mass, you need a cross-governmental solution. You need Ministry of Education, you know, training new drone pilots, drone engineers, and new counter-UAS engineers and technicians. You need Ministry of Economy, allowing you to use the airspace. You need Ministry of whatever, who is responsible for radio frequencies to allow you EW thing, and so on and so forth. So we need to innovate, we need strong political leadership, and it's smart to do this during the peacetime in order to prepare for the war.
Yeah, and we saw, oh, you guys weren't there, but there was a press conference, and the Minister for Defense of Belgium was saying that he was having trouble in his own country to pass through 2% spending, which they did barely, but there's been a lot of societal pushback, and that is a concern. And then just last week in Estonia at Latitude, startup conference, there was a lot of talk about how you can't win a war with dual use, but a lot of startups are forced to use dual use because investors are forced to, they're not able to invest in specifically named, defense tech. And but I know that LMT does a lot of dual use stuff, and do you guys see a challenge in managing your dual use while at the same time being efficient in the defense tech area? And
yeah, I think there are 3 words during last years. We, especially in Europe, we have managed to somehow destroy the sense of that word. One is innovation, other is ecosystem, and then dual use is the third one. So first of all, getting back to the percents and that wonderful stuff. So from the one side, and Baltic countries, because of the threat perception, because the threat perception even in Europe, though changing slightly, but still it is completely different to live in Baltic states when you are living, I don't know, in city of Rezekne in Latvia, and you are actually every day living under the umbrella of Russian artillery, for example, potentially. And completely different thing is to live in Netherlands or Belgium. That's why the threat perception is different even in Europe. Despite that, and it reflected in the percent growth actually of the defense spending. But the big challenge, and I think the big threat of the percent growing, is that are we really sure that we will spend those 5% effectively, and most important, fast? And there is a big question mark on that. We are discussing nowadays in Latvia, in parallel to the percents, there is a lot of discussions about green corridors and all these wonderful things with regards to the defense industry, to increase the pace, to bring in more companies, more startups, more large enterprise like LMT, because LMT is large and fat. We are one of the we are 5th or 6th largest enterprise in the country, and we really believe in the senseful idea of bringing more large enterprise and to serve as the dual use platform to develop and contribute to the defense. But at the same time, we are still at the same situation as we were before the war, just heard the story yesterday that you cannot, that some companies in Latvia, guys, they cannot buy a car just because they are identified as the military manufacturer, and bank is just not leasing a car for them. And that's the reality. And I mean, that is the most important thing which has to change really fast in line with the percents. Because percents in Latvia, they're changing, like especially at the beginning of the year, we were discussing about 3.5, then 4.5, then 5, and God bless our armed forces who are adjusting their procurement plans to that pace of the percent increase. So that's about the pace in general and some of the misinterpretations of the words. With regards to the LMT, I think, first of all, what we have seen, what we actually started to see already in 2014, when actually war started in Ukraine, is that both sides eventually switch from the usage of conventional military communication systems to using the most available, the most affordable thing, which is telco technology. And therefore, I would be brave enough to say that every communication provider or every communication can be dual use. It doesn't mean we don't have to adapt and learn how to integrate into the defense activities.
Oh, thank you. And speaking of integration, then I'll have a question for Christian. If we're talking about the stability of the supply chain, which is critical to the stability and security, how do you see, is there a challenge right now, and what has to be done to future-proof even further European security, and what can we learn from current situations in Ukraine?
Yeah. I mean, we heard words like dual use and the different scenarios being at the front line or further back in peacetime countries. And this really points out that this counter-drone threat is not all the same in all these different scenarios. So we see this homeland, peacetime threat in political events, soccer stadiums, airports. We see espionage, we see smuggling, and this is all like still peacetime but evolving. And then we see the wartime scenarios, and they all need different concepts, not different concepts, but different equipment, different products. So that's on the good hand, because not each and every product is doing the trick for all the scenarios. So we do not have to source all the systems with only one product house. Nevertheless, especially the military equipment is very stressed out right now because the demand is so high and everyone is preparing. But we cannot forget the civilian stakeholders in that area as well. They need other products, other equipment, more civil or dual-use ones. So the good thing is we can source in different areas, different product providers. What can be the same is the software, because the scenario is always the same. We have to detect, we have to analyze, have a situational awareness, and then to react. And the rules of engagement may be different, but the software is the same. So we can focus on building a portfolio with a common situational awareness software with all the interfaces in the military world, in the civil world, in the different customer groups, and using different kinds of products from the different vendors.
Okay, and if we look towards the future and the what is next, what is coming up, what are you seeing, Christian, from the innovation side of things? What's coming in and what will become the norm, or what are we missing that we still need?
Well, what we heard is affordable equipment. That's definitely something which is coming with scaling and bigger numbers, because we see the awareness is there. Everyone understood this by now. There are still a lot of stakeholders underestimate the complexity, thinking the threat is quite small, the threat is quite cheap, so the solution is also small and cheap. And this is not the case. This is not the case. And to allocate budgets in a peacetime scenario for not the military troops is very difficult for a lot of states. So we see movement there, we see movement and therefore affordable equipment there, and we see that it matures over time. All the ideas of small missiles, affordable missiles, counter-drone, so drone on drone, or even other technologies to detect or defend drones. So we see movement there, and this will lead to a more stable solution offering, I would say.
Thank you. And then Veiko, after this one, but on the same topic, I'll have a question for Yaroslav, because we have an expo filled with many companies that are looking to use and test and offer their drone solutions in Ukraine, and you yourself are going to the front line very often to test your own solutions. What are you seeing? What is necessary? Is there a gap in what is needed? And are any of these companies able to contribute?
So, you know, many companies would like to test their drones on these real combat conditions. And many companies really did it till today. So I see that if we're talking about the future and about what will be important and workable, I see that the technologies will continue to develop, and this is the race without the start and without the finish. This is the, like, you know, the battle between the fire and the water. Here is the battle between drones and electronic warfare. So when drone will develop something new, like the more powerful signal amplifiers, or will migrate to another, like frequencies upper than 6,000, 10,000 megahertz, then will electronic warfare develop something new and will destroy this in a, I don't know, few months. And this will continue till this hot period will end. Because as everyone sees, before the war started, there were not such a fast development of the technologies. Yes, so drones were developing slowly. They, in 2010, they were flying 1-2 kilometers. In 2020, they were flying 10 kilometers. So just better quality of the picture, better quality of the movies, and etc., etc. And when war started, it was a jump of technologies development. And I hope that when war will end, these technologies, we can use it in a civil market, as we talked about earlier, because most of civilian technologies, they started from the military. Yes, and of course, we will need to protect all facilities like the stadiums, concerts, and big squares with a crowd and critical infrastructure and etc. But I hope that it will be not about the killing people, but about only, I don't know, gathering information or reconnaissance or something like that. But one more time, I want to emphasize that it's okay when everything is developing step by step and without chaos. But I hope you will not know the conditions when you should cross your rules and make everything to survive. That's the answer.
Yeah, I think that's a wish that we can all wish for everyone. But Veiko, you had a comment.
Absolutely, always. Thank you again for asking. So it just occurred to me that we saw that change already in cybersecurity. And if you think back to cybersecurity, then people suddenly understood that cybersecurity is not a product, it's a process. So counter-UAS is also not a product. So it's a constant process. So what has changed on the battlefield now is that literally you have engineers in the foxholes. So it used to be in a way that you have innovation and evolution, but this happens away from the battlefield, and the weapons are tested and brought forward, and then feedback and so on and so forth. Now the speed is so quick that you literally have to have innovation and engineers in the foxholes. So counter-UAV is a process, not a product. That also means that you can, but you have to change the way how to store your weaponry. Normally is that you do artillery shells, and artillery shells have not really changed in the past 30, 50, 80 years. You fix the caliber, you do artillery shells, and there is, slight improvement, but you have to do them in case of war and prepare them into the warehouse. It would be stupid to buy 1 million drones today and put it warehouse to wait for war. So it's same with counter-UAS systems. So you have to kind of understand which parts of the drone or a counter-UAS system is something that literally doesn't change over the years. So those you can put into warehouse. And then some things change, less quicker. Okay, I put half of the needed resource into the warehouse. And then you assemble the weapons as the war starts. So it's a totally different approach to, how to prepare for war. Same with counter-UAS. And the last idea is that in order to invest 5% into Latvian independence and freedom and security, I think there needs to be a forced procurement, forced innovation, and forced innovation through forced procurement. I mean, if Russian military burns nowadays through 2 million drones per year, whatever the number is, it's enormous number. 4 drones for every soldier, 3 drones, 5 drones, whatever the number is. You have to force the similar pace onto your own national armed forces in order to catch up. So even, and that goes against every normal principle. You buy a drone, you use it, and then you throw it away and get a newer one, because there is a newer one on the market. And normally, we are very common sense people, use it until it doesn't fly anymore, type of thing, but this is not the approach now. So you just procure forcefully, throw away totally, working things, but they're not relevant anymore.
In a way, a deterrence approach. But my one question I want for Lennart, we were talking about a discrepancy between what is needed on the front line versus what is being created. But you have a unique experience that you also have one foot in the world of academia. Are you seeing, is there a gap between knowledge and real life usability?
Yeah, I do think there is. I think there's a large part of technologies that are being developed that will become useful at some point, and that we're also actively looking at integrating. But yeah, I would like to see a bit more of a connect there in some ways, although, well, yeah, our technical university is a bit more held back in that regard. Yeah, I think, yeah, to connect a bit with the other panelists, I think software upgradable is something where we can really do a lot now. Yeah, we can sort of set up configurations for counter drone and configurations for drones that, we see a development roadmap towards, that we can develop software to make it better that isn't there now. But we can already procure now 1 million drones that will be able to support that and that already have some basic functionality. And I think that would work, yeah, perfectly also together with the academic ecosystem to get those features out that are now TRL 2 to 4 and get them up to TRL 8 and then already have the drones ready to deploy it.
Thank you. So we're in the last few minutes of our panel, but then our main takeaways there are many main takeaways that we've had, but some of the key factors that have really resonated with me is that counter-drone approaches is a process, not a product, that innovation has to happen continuously, that scaling is critical, and that we should be involving the political systems and putting in the political processes now rather than later. All right, so maybe you can help join me in a round of applause for our panelists, and please, this is the moment to ask your questions while you still can. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, panelists. Thank you, Julia. questions submitted by our audience here, and they're basically all to anyone in the panel, so anyone who feels like, please answer. So, does GNSS jamming and spoofing will change civil drone systems' dependence from satellite navigation?
Civil drone systems specifically, that was the question.
Yeah, so I think from our side we are looking at incorporating GNSS tonight, visual navigation to our software stack. I think it really helps in making for a more robust navigation solution where, even when we're testing, sometimes GPS is lost because, well, either the hardware is faulty or we're just in a bad spot. And I think that's where, we can really incorporate these different methods of navigation into one product that functions better and, it's just also safer.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, we have a few more. What do you see as the most underappreciated weaknesses in drone system today?
Could you say that question again?
Yes. What do you see as the most underappreciated weaknesses in drone system today?
So the biggest weakness in drone systems.
Which didn't come up before.
Maybe Yaroslav, you see some weaknesses in real life.
If I may first, so then you please say what the actual weakness, because I'm not a specialist, but I think the biggest weakness what drones have is that you literally have one drone, one operator to generalize this thing. So if you want to have 100,000 drones in the air, you kind of need 100,000 operators. And when you go to the FPV drone, it's hard. So you have to have practice, and it's not very, it's easy to read from newspapers, but to actually do the FPV drone attack, it's quite hard, I think. So if we can break through that somehow, then we'll see totally different game.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
I just can agree with with previous, because the one drone pilot, one drone is really weakness, and this is the reason why every producer of drones searching for technology with artificial intelligence and with swarm of drones and etc. And I don't know, the weakness of drones, it's for me it's a strange question, because I would like to talk about the best possibilities of the drones, but not about the weakness. What is weakness? Signal, it's not a weakness. Depending of the GNSS, it's not a weakness, because, for example, in Ukraine, on the front line, there is no GNSS signal totally. Maybe really the biggest weakness is that the person should operate the drone. This is only one I see, because the person, it depends on the skills, on the professional skills of this pilot. This is the only one, so I don't see another.
I think also that's the biggest problem we're trying to solve, is indeed the one drone, one pilot paradigm, and then also reliance on a signal, so your signal can always be jammed. Even when you're in a swarm, so you broke through that, you now have a drone show basically, then you still have this connection that can be broken up, and that's a huge dependency when your enemy also has methods to break your system, and that's what we're working on, is to make sure that our system becomes unbreakable, or only through kinetic means.
And of course, just to add, I mean, self-evident thing, lots of people, when they talk about drones and swarming, they sometimes don't understand the physics. So small drone can fly only very small distance, relatively. Yeah. So it's kind of, that is, again, you have a line of contact or the line of enemy, and from there you count maybe 5 clicks or 10 clicks or 25 clicks, doesn't matter. But you can't go 2,500. For this you need already a very large drone with very large signature.
And those can also swarm, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, one more weakness is that it's a preparing pilots, I guess. It's not about the drone, but about the using drone. Yeah. Because to prepare a professional pilot, you need 2 more weeks to study him. And this is the weakness because when the pilot is destroyed, so -1 pilot, -100 drones per day.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. Quite a discussion here. With drone capabilities advancing so quickly, where do you think current detection tech is falling behind, especially in terms of ease of deployment and affordability?
A somewhat related question about the...
As a 21 in the panel. Yeah.
Well, if I may, it's not really the increasing technology on the drone side. It is the actual already now existing problem of detecting drones in great ranges for an affordable amount of money, because these small drones, which can, carry enough to be a harm, are very difficult to detect already now without any development on the drone side. So, and detecting this drone in a reasonable distance needs quite a significant effort in direction finder, in radar, in camera systems to verify if it's really a drone flying there or a bird or just a moving tree. So to only detect a drone in about, 4 kilometers distance around your position, you already need to invest significantly especially compared to the cost of the drone. And we are not talking about a few 10,000s or 100,000s, we are talking about millions of euros necessary, and only to cover 4 kilometers distance. So that's why I said it is right now super underestimated how complex this is and how expensive this will be to really secure the high value targets we have in our countries or in the military or during wartime. Because you need a significant amount of money to buy the right equipment to secure only a small area. And when military customers approach us and ask, but we want to secure 50 kilometers times 100 kilometers, this is just not possible with 1, 2, or 3, or even 100 sensors, then there is more needed. So, and that's perfect.
Thank you. Anyone else on this one?
To build a detection line, you should understand. At first, you should classify drones, because, for example, for FPV drones, it's not a problem to detect with RF scanning, but RF scanning will not be workable with, for example, Shaheds. But with Shaheds will be workable radio location systems, but radio location systems will not see small fiber optic drones. Yeah. So, to understand how to build these protection stages, you should classify drones, classify the threats, and should understand the routes of drones, should understand the places and what kind of drones are operating on these places, and should understand that on the front line you should have one solution, because there is like suicide drones, reconnaissance drones, wings and multirotors. But in the depths of territory, you should have radio location systems, because there is the Shaheds, big drones, and missiles, and etc. So just to build a system of detection and neutralizing drones, you should understand how this system is working, and then you will build the stages of detection and then of protection.
Thank you. I invite you to grab panelists by the hand in the halls of our center for additional answers you might get. But this is it for this panel. Thank you. Big thanks to panelists and Ms. Gifford for moderating. Big applause.
Thank you.
Thank you.